Hi, I'm Kevin, and this is HFX by Bike, a channel all about getting around Halifax by bike. I take requests for which trips get covered on the channel, and one that's come up is getting from the south end of the Halifax Peninsula to the ferry terminal at Alderney Landing in downtown Dartmouth. Normally, I would take the ferry for this kind of trip since I'm going to the ferry terminal, but this trip is actually for someone who drives the ferry, so that's not really an option this time. It actually started snowing on my way to the south end, but that's okay, you can bike in the snow. As always, I'll be playing a game of +1 -2 along the way. Every time I run into something that makes my trip safer or more convenient, I'll add a point, and every time I run into something that makes it less safe or less convenient, I'll take away 2 points. You can keep track of how I think the ride is going by looking at the heads-up display in the bottom right-hand corner. I'm just starting out at the Tower Road parking lot for Point Pleasant Park in the south end of the peninsula. There's no bike infrastructure in the area, but this is actually classified as a local street. This early in the morning I'm not going to be seeing many cars, so I just won't take any points off. Drivers tend to be more mindful when the driving conditions are less than ideal, like right after a snowfall, and a consequence of that is they tend to give bikes a bit more space. I'm going through the container terminal to get to the bridge since it's the most direct path and tends to have pretty light traffic. I'm not going to be missing out on any bike infrastructure by taking this route anyways. The paving on the road is pretty good and the entire area is flat. There are rail lines running through the area, but they're all basically perpendicular to the road, so your tires aren't likely to get caught in them. Just be mindful that they're there. This is a lower Water Street protected bike lane. It's going to keep me out of traffic as I move through downtown Halifax. Unfortunately, it does get interrupted by construction. The lane is physically separated from traffic with flex posts. That's like a step above paint and a step below a hard barrier. The paving on the lane is pretty good and the whole thing is basically flat. The city typically pre-salts the bike lane and so it's resistant to being iced over. This electric scooter shouldn't be in the bike lane and definitely shouldn't be in the bike lane going the wrong way. The lanes are wide enough to allow passing so we can just move past each other, but it's still annoying. This section of the bike lane is elevated off the road. I've barely had to stop the entire way since I've started, and that's one of the benefits of building bike lanes on major roads like this. Biking through downtown pre-sunrise with all the holiday lights is nice. This elevated section is new and connects seamlessly with the Barrington Greenway. The Greenway is a bi-directional multi-use path, and so you're going to be sharing space with pedestrians, but it's generally wide enough that it's not an issue. The paving is good, but the Cogswell redevelopment project means that the entire area is an active construction site, so conditions may vary day to day. These traffic lights don't apply to me because I'm on a multi-use path. The Greenway gets pretty good winter maintenance, or at least I've never had any issues with it. I've had pretty good lighting for the entire trip so far, and a big part of that is because I've been sharing the right-of-way with the road. The second the Greenway deviates from the road, it loses all lighting. This is the main active transport corridor linking the north end of Halifax, Dartmouth, and the downtown, and it's literally shrouded in darkness. As a user experience, this isn't great. At least there are guardrails. The intersection at Barrington is covered by cross rides, so I can get to the bridge ramp without dismounting. Getting onto the bridge ramp requires making multiple hairpin turns and crossing a slip lane. It's more awkward than anything else. The ramp itself is for bikes only, and so you can proceed at your own speed. The ramp is bikeable by most people, but it is a little on the steep side. That's unfortunate because bikes can only access the ramp from Barrington. There is no approach from North Street. On the upside, the ramp does keep me separate from traffic as I climb this hill. The Macdonald Bridge bikeway allows bikes to travel across the harbour completely separate from car traffic. The bikeway is on the narrow side for a bidirectional path, but there is enough space to pass bikes going in the same direction, at least at current traffic volumes. It's smooth to roll over, and I've never had any issues with icing in the winter. Obviously, the major advantage of the bridge bikeway is that it mirrors a major roadway in letting me cross the harbour. The pylons do create a bit of a visual obstruction, so you will need to slow down to make sure you don't run into anyone. These tolls don't apply to bikes. The transition from the bridge onto the Weiss Road protected bike lanes is seamless. The intersection of Weiss and Nantucket is covered by both bike lights and cross rides, both of which are going to make it a lot easier for cyclists to get across this large, busy intersection. Waiting for all the lights to cycle through can be kind of annoying though. The lanes on Weiss Road keep me separated from traffic with a physical barrier. They're completely flat, well paved, and probably the widest dedicated bike infrastructure in the city. Just like with everything else, they tend to have pretty good winter maintenance. There's essentially a dedicated left turn lane, complete with a sensor that activates a signal to get bikes onto the Dartmouth Commons. That's incredibly cool, but I'm not using it today. I just get dumped into traffic on a major road as I approach downtown Dartmouth, but I've been out of traffic all the way from the far side of downtown Halifax, so here are the bonus points. I've arrived at Alderney Landing, and there's free bike parking on the other side of the building. My trip from the south end of the peninsula to Alderney Landing took about 25 minutes, which is only a little bit longer than Google's 14 to 20 minute estimate for a car making the same trip at the same time of day. Most of the path I chose was covered by one form of bike infrastructure or another, or was at least a low traffic street. I think this kind of trip is very doable by most people by bike, even on a snowy day before the sun rises. The only large gap in the infrastructure network that I ran into was on the final approach just before downtown Dartmouth. That's it for this one. Let me know what kind of trips you'd like to see covered. As always, thanks for watching, and see you next time.